Is it yes on F-bombs or no on F-bombs?
I'll tell you, they're fine right now. They're fine right now. So, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Aaron Show here. That's the name of the show, right? The Aaron Show.
Right.
Welcome, you guys, to Practically Tactical this evening. I'll tell you what, we got an awesome show tonight. I am super excited about it. But let's see here. If we got any pre-podcast show announcements, I don't think so. Oh, our other B left right there. We just got one Brannon now. Man.
Little B had to go.
But for all those guys out there watching on YouTube right now, so if you look in the description box below, there's links to both of these guys right here. We're going to be expanding on one of Brannon's recent videos that he put out. The link is below. I think it's like a 3-minute long video. So you can go click that right now, watch it, and then come back and hop on into the conversation. I can tell you it's a fantastic video he did, and he actually released a couple more that are fantastic as well. But go watch that video, then come on back because that's what we're going to be discussing during the show. So go watch that. So if you got any questions, put that in the chat or the Google Q&A app. Put your questions in, and we'll be sure to answer those live during the show. Also, please be sure to click that like, thumbs up, and share button on the video, as it really helps us spread the word about the show around YouTube. So that's it for this part. Let's go ahead and start the show. Oh, also, I apologize ahead of time. I am trying to recover from a terrible sickness. I think I have water park Ebola. So I apologize for that ahead of time.
Professionals don't make excuses.
I'm not whoever said the show was professional, somebody lied to you. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 63, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show is a slightly more practical approach to the firearms lifestyle. The show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, and shooting with some of the best firearms instructors and figures in the firearms industry. Hey, look at that. We have an instructor and a figure on the show today. But who's who? For more information on the show, links to our guests, guns, and gear we discussed, please visit practacpodcast.com/063. I can tell you what, awesome show for you guys tonight. We're going to be discussing Brannon here, who's a guest on the show, and I have a special co-host here as well, Aaron from Solo Defense. Brannon put out a fantastic video on kind of mindset, and the video kind of covered of you look at a defensive situation, you know, the actual pulling of the trigger is, you know, less than 1% of the total encompassing situation. And it was a fantastic video, so we're going to be breaking it down. So if you guys check out the show notes and then listen to the show, it'll make a lot more sense. And, of course, while you're there, subscribe to NOLATAC on YouTube. He puts out some fantastic videos. For your listeners, he should sound familiar as well. He was on an episode of Practically Tactical on Target talking about some med kits, so be sure to check that out as well. But, Mr. Brannon, hey, man, thanks for coming on. Brannon from NOLATAC, thanks for coming on tonight, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. And then, of course, it worked out this way because I'm actually somewhat sick. But I had talked to Aaron at Solo Defense. He said he's going to come on no matter what. So I said sure. He wanted to steal the show from Brannon, but it worked out because I'm terribly sick. So we got Aaron on here who's going to try to help cover and run this show for me.
I didn't get that message. I just said I was coming on.
Oh, okay.
It was either I get to come on the show or I was going to just like bombard you guys with questions on the comments, and I think you just chose the lesser of two evils.
Oh.
That was that's what I took away from it anyway.
Well, we can let Brannon decide right now. Should we have him on, or do you want him just to ask questions?
Well, no, I like having Aaron there because it just makes me look that much better.
That's why I'm here. I'm here for you tonight. Okay? I'm here for you.
But a couple show notes here we get started. I've talked about the third annual Shot Heard Around the World in Keene, New Hampshire. A couple updates on that. They've teamed up with Wishes for Warriors, so they're going to be doing a bunch of raffles with tons of great prizes to fundraise for Wishes for Warriors. And then just for attending, buying a ticket and attending the Shot Heard Around the World, Snakehound Wicked Weaponry and Ares Armor are all together putting together a rifle that's a giveaway. So you can actually buy your tickets to attend the third annual Shot Heard Around the World at snakehoundmachine.com. A couple big additions there. Jim Irwin will be there. S3F will be there. S3F is going to bring a ton of salient arms as guns as well for you guys to take a look at and shoot. So be sure to check that out. The link to the Facebook event is in the show notes, as well as you can buy your tickets at snakehoundmachine.com. And then also one big thing we're going to be doing here, and this is an opportunity for all you listeners and watchers out there to be on Practically Tactical. For the month of April, we're going to be doing EDC April. So that is your guys' invite to come on the show. We're going to bring on a firearms instructor as well, and we're going to talk some EDC, what you're carrying, and maybe you can get some feedback and maybe talk about some things that maybe you have questions on about your daily carry. It's going to be an awesome series of shows all through the month of April. So please email me at nick@firearmsradio.tv if you want to come on the show. We'll be doing that Wednesday nights during the month of April. It's going to be an awesome time. We're going to be covering all EDC through the month of April. So again, email me at nick@firearmsradio.tv. But let's go ahead and move to our main segment here. So, Brannon, what's kind of your who, what, when, where, why story? When you grow up, were you born looking this good? Did it take some beatings to kind of get there, or what's kind of your history and your story?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little rough around the edges, but I think I've grown into myself pretty well. No, man, I big picture, law enforcement, military, a little bit of contracting, just kind of always been in that type of lifestyle. I was a kid running around making my own bow and arrows in the backyard and shooting imaginary people. I still sometimes shoot at imaginary people. But yeah, I just been for about the last almost 20 years or so just been doing something having to do with firearms in some kind of way.
Okay. Random question. Did you have an Indian name?
If so, it probably would have been like him with big mouth or something.
I actually had an Indian name growing up. I gave myself because I made the bow and arrows too. It was a very creative name. It was called Towel because I ran around with a towel on. Did
you ever buy those ninja claw things and you put in your feet to try to climb trees with at the back of the Black Belt magazine?
No.
Yeah, I did that. That didn't work.
Oh, excuse me, Aaron. Did you ever do any of that stuff, buddy?
Oh yeah. All the way up until you find out that they don't work and you get half up a tree and they fall off into the pond. Yes, absolutely. And you get them in the mail. You're so excited. And you're like, this is awesome. And you're like, what is with this shoestring? How do I make it get on? How do I tie this to my shoe and make this work like they do on TV? I don't understand.
Come with any instructions.
Yeah. Ninjas don't need instructions. I apparently was not quite there.
Hey, we made it just fine though. No seatbelts, no helmets. We all turned out fine, right?
A little bit.
Yeah.
But so let's jump right into this here. So Brandon, what's the video that you put out there? And again, for our listeners out there, make sure you guys watch this video. It's a fantastic video because I think number one, it really adds perspective of the before and after. Because I think that's something that maybe we might focus on a lot of the before. And I think both you guys as firearms instructors, obviously that's what a lot of people want. That's the cool part of it, right? Where we get all the gear and the guns, and we shoot all the bullets, and we put holes in paper. But I think it really kind of puts in perspective of, all that stuff that we train for is such a little amount of the before and after. And that's why I think the video is so fantastic. But Brandon, kind of can I guess maybe for the listeners out there, can you kind of give a brief overview of that video and kind of the idea behind it and kind of where that came from?
Sure. What it essentially was other than teaching kind of more, quote, tactical stuff, nationally, I'm in Louisiana, I do a lot of concealed handgun permit courses. I'm probably quantity-wise one of the top guys in the state that do it. And through doing that, I obviously have my curriculum and things I teach, and almost always I'm dealing with people who are extremely new to firearms in general, just as mechanically, but then also just to the overall concept of self-defense, legal things, all the other auxiliary stuff that comes into that equation. So trying to make it as concrete as I could for people to understand. Some people deal well with numbers. I didn't. It took me probably about 10 years to get these numbers right. But to break it down as something that people could understand visually is if you were to look at using a firearm to defend yourself, it doesn't have to be a firearm. It could be any level of force. But in the context of a concealed handgun permit course, if you were to use a firearm to defend yourself as 100%, like things have gone all the way, breaking up the components of that equation into the things that happen before you pull the trigger and the things that do the things you do after you pull the trigger. Because actually pulling the trigger, the thing that we spend so much time and money and discussion and debate on, is a very small fraction of actual time. But preparing for that moment and actually preparing to hopefully avoid that moment, but to also perform in that little bitty time frame, and then all the consequences that come after it are a much larger piece of that pie. So I kind of use the diagram and the things I show in the video as a way of getting people to visualize that kind of abstract concept.
Well, and Aaron, you can jump on this. I think you hit on the nail there. Is it kind of gives you that visual aspect of, okay, what for the stuff that we train for, the stuff that we never want to have to do to pull our gun. What I loved about the video was, again, like you put there, it puts that visual perspective of this. It's a little blip of the whole situation, the before and after. And I think that's kind of, for me, like, as soon as I saw the video, I was like, Brandon, dude, you got to come on the show and do this. Because for me, it kind of puts it in perspective. What about for you, Aaron?
Yeah, like, I just want you to go more in depth with, talking, if we're going to go through that tonight, like that 49%. Like, if someone was standing in front of you right now, to put it into perspective, what are some things, before you get to that point of having to use, making a decision to use your firearm, what are some things you have to actually consider in that 49% as a concealed carry holder or somebody who just has a gun at their home for home defense? Sure.
The whole aspect of that 49%, and the way I say it is, I say there's about 49% that happens before you pull the trigger and about 51% that happens after. That 49% is really about avoidance, and avoidance via decision making is hopefully during that 49% you've made good enough decisions that you're able to avoid that less than 1%. But if you can't, or you've maybe made bad decisions that have pushed that 1%, then how you did that 49% is going to matter. And for example, that 49% includes you walking by an alley and seeing a guy and a girl in a heated discussion, and you decide to stick your nose in it, and that situation escalates to a point where now you had to use that less than 1%. When you go to that second 51%, the court element of that, they're going to look back at that 49%. They're going to look back at those decisions and say, what role did that play in you having, because that's what they're going to look at. They want to see that you had to use that gun. And they're going to look at what role you played in whether or not you had to do it. I mean, if you're sleeping in your bed at night, I said this in a video, if you're sleeping in your bed at night and 2 o'clock in the morning someone kicks in your door, it's kind of hard to put blame on you. Like, you really didn't do anything to make that happen. Wasn't a whole lot you could do to avoid it. But when you choose to interject yourself in situations, or maybe you're a little intoxicated, or maybe you're someplace that you necessarily shouldn't be, and the thing I say is avoiding stupid people, stupid places, and stupid things. And if you've done those things, if maybe you're in a stupid place that you probably shouldn't be, or you've let a verbal altercation escalate instead of walking away, all that's part of that 49%, and it's going to be viewed once that 51% kicks in.
Yeah. And some of your other briefs that you've done, some of your YouTube videos or blog posts that you've written, you talk about, when you find yourself in a defensive, encounter, there are actually 3 different fights that you go through. And honestly, some of them happen before that 0.001%, and some of them happen after. Can you kind of go a little bit more into detail about what that is?
Yeah, a lot of guys kind of use that 3-fight analogy. I know James Yeager uses it a lot. I went through one of his instructor courses. He uses it. We often say that there is the physical altercation, which is the gunfight, knife fight, fist fight, whatever's going on. There's the emotional fight, dealing with not only what you did, but the following consequences that are going to come. And those consequences would also be part of that 3rd fight, which is the legal battle. And like I said, it's a very small, that physical altercation is a very small percent, and in my opinion, actually the easiest, because it's something we can actually train for. I mean, shooting a gun is a mechanical skill. I could teach a blind monkey to shoot a gun. That's easy. What I can't teach you how to do is to make good decisions so you don't have to use that firearm. But the way those things work is it's not necessarily before and after so much, because we're preparing for all 3 of those fights at all times. So yes, the legal battle doesn't start until after you pull the trigger, but preparing for the legal battle starts immediately. And I get into that in my class too, as I tell them, your preparation for that battle started before you walked in this building, because my entire property is has video recording. So the time you drove in the parking lot is there. The time you walked in the door is there. All that is discoverable evidence, so that when you do have to use that firearm, and you say, wait, I have a permit, what we know is that if they can't attack the facts of the case, they attack the evidence of the case. If they can't attack the evidence of the case, they attack you and try to discredit you. So if they, and the way they do that in these types of contexts, typically is they attack your instructor. As soon as you raise your hand and say, oh, I've got training, I think I froze up there for a second. But they're going to come after all those elements. Now, some of that will be easily dismissed through documentation or through a expert witness, but you're going to have to deal with that to some degree. So again, that emotional battle should begin. The preparation for that should begin I think it should begin long before you ever even purchase a firearm. You should start thinking about, as an adult, where do you stand morally, religiously, ethically, on how you're going to use force against other people, and are you going to be okay with that? I mean, believe it or not, there are people who, because of their religious beliefs, they can't fathom actually killing another person, even if it means saving their own life. Like, that just doesn't compute in their brain based on their belief system, and that doesn't make them better or worse than anyone. It's just an element they have to deal with. You know, the other thing is, there may be certain circumstances in your use of force where you have to deal with that. For example, say someone starts reaching in their waistband, you see what you think's a gun, you shoot them, it is a gun, but come to find out the gun was unloaded. And the guy pulling it happened to be 14 years old. Does that circumstantially play any role in the fact that at that moment you needed to use lethal force? No. But as a human being, you think you might have some issue with the fact that you effectively shot an unarmed 14-year-old? Yeah, you're going to have to rationalize that in your brain, and that's where that emotional part comes. The emotional part also has a really tail end when it's all said and done. How are you dealing with everything that happened? Look at someone like George Zimmerman. Whether you agree with what he did or not, he hasn't been right since. He can't get a job. He can't stay out of trouble. That's not because necessarily he was a bad guy and now we're just seeing it. It's because he's dealing with all that stuff. That guy is never going to have a normal life, ever. And depending on the circumstances of your use of force, you might not either. And you got to be able to deal with that.
I think that's a really good point there, talking about, you go before the case, I'm sure George Zimmerman never expected that, or, you can look at the case in Ferguson and that kind of starting up now. The media can totally make something a big deal, and it could totally not be, None
of us should even know the name George Zimmerman. There was absolutely, positively, not a single bullet point that was noteworthy about that case. What happened in that case happens every day in this country, justifiably. But it just so happened that the stars aligned and the right media caught it, and boom, it went. That happens every day. And that's the way our society works. But there was nothing that warranted any type of media from that at all. But it just did.
I agree. All right, we're going to jump into Aaron's favorite word here. And, maybe we should have done a drinking game for this or something. Like, every time somebody says the word mindset, like Aaron has to drink or, I don't know, something. But let's talk about this word mindset. And I think you touched on it during the video of, maybe I'm thinking of the following video up of the second one of mindset, and then that will number one to never give up. But I think that term is thrown around a lot in the firearms industry of mindset. Can you, in your opinion, we're going to strictly gear this towards kind of the concealed carrier type of stuff. When you hear mindset, or when you teach mindset to a concealed carrier, what are you emphasizing people that their mindset should be? What should they be thinking about?
I think it's first important to understand, from an instructor's perspective, what does mindset mean to him? When we hear that, lots of times we think in the context of combat mindset, and it has this military thing. mindset is just the way you view something. I mean, football players have a particular competitive mindset. Like, it's just how you organize things in your brain relative to the context. So the mindset for raising a child is not the mindset for going into combat. It's just a word. And a lot of people, particularly in our industry, like to get very pedantic about words and stuff, like tactical or things like that, or dynamic. They just get real wrapped around the axle on words. And to me, that's just kind of, okay, whatever. But what I try to get to these people when it comes to mindset is just to set their mind. In other words, come to some place on where you think about this, because your mindset should be constantly evolving, because you should be constantly learning. So it's not like it's a check in the box. All right, got that mindset. Let's go to that next. No, you're constantly developing, because you're growing as a human being. Your life experiences, hopefully your training, all that stuff. Society's changing. That's all happening. So I could tell you, just as a police officer, looking at it, that's a completely out of context what you asked, but as a young police officer, to me, my mindset was I was a good cop if I went out and wrote a bunch of tickets, because X number of tickets equaled X number of work that I did, and look at how hard I worked. And I wasn't doing it to be mean or to revenue. I really thought that that's what being a good cop meant. Then as I matured and I got older and I interacted with other officers and just through life, I realized, you know what? That's not how you qualify a good cop. It's not. There's good cops that write 1 ticket a year, and there's good cops that write 100 tickets a day. So my mindset evolved about that. When it comes to concealed carry, all I'm trying to get these people to understand is that, one, they need to have an internal belief. They have to convince themselves before they ever can hope to convince someone else that they are not going to be a victim. And that could mean different things to different people. And what a lot of them I say, look, it's not even about you. You got kids. Look at it this way. You are the barrier between them and your kids. You may not care about your life, but your life has to continue so you can protect your kids. It's just getting them to think in that, just kind of in that vein of, okay, I'm here. This is where I'm at. And then, of course, it evolves. Like I said, just depends on their life experiences. Some people come to the table with that because they've already been victimized, and they're like, not again. And there's no mindset really needed. They're ready to go.
Aaron, was that a good segue for what you wanted to hit on there?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're already pretty much talking about it, and he's, Brandon's doing his thing, and I don't even have to really segue anything. He's got it down. I really wanted to talk about, mindset as a buzzword versus, what, the context of what mindset actually means. We say mindset a lot. I have repeat students come to my classes that they will actually take a tally of how many times I say the word mindset throughout the day, and then try to keep track during the course of the day. Most of them lose count by about lunchtime. Because, I mean, having that proper mindset as it pertains to firearms training and being a concealed carry individual or law enforcement officer or whatever capacity you carry a firearm in, they go hand in hand, but to know really what that word means and what you need to and learn and, like you said, evolve as you grow as a concealed carry person or in your day-to-day life. It's more than just a buzzword, and Brandon's already said that, so you ruined that for me. So I was going to put that in now, but whatever. So I mean, we talked about the 3 different fights. We talked about all the decisions making we have to make before and after that shot is fired. And what a lot of people don't understand is, like, as you've already talked about, concealed carry classes. One of the most important classes you can actually have, honestly, if you have to have a permit to carry a firearm in your state, knowing the laws in that state is very, very important. I think we could all agree. That is the law of the land. That is what you have, statutes, whatever. In this very litigious society that we live in, we need to know every bit that we can and learn, where we carry our firearms and how the law affects us if we have to use our firearms, because that's what we're going to be judged, according to after the fact. And that, last 51% after that 0.001%. As Brandon has so eloquently put before, the laws are written in black and white, but we don't live in that black and white life. Can we?
That's copyrighted, by the way.
Do what?
That's copyrighted. NOLATAC 2012.
Look at you. Yeah, I've got it down. I got it pulled up right here beside me. Copyright. Great. So anyway, his copyright never expires apparently. But anyway, so you're talking about that. What does that actually mean? What we're looking at is if we don't live in that black and white world, but we have to use that black and white law, written in black and white as a judgment, so we can judge our actions. How do we do that in our day-to-day life?
The best and the worst part or element of our criminal justice system is that each case is judged on its own individual merit. Every case has different circumstances and variables, so it's not, oh, we did this in this case and we got to do this in that case. Yes, we have things like case law that kind of help us guide the decision-making process, but each case is individually different. And that's the best part, because each case is individually different and it should be looked at individually. It's the worst part because it's subjective. The weak link in our criminal justice system is the human being. It's still 12 people with 12 different sets of life experiences and education and biases and racism and prejudice and all the things that human beings bring to the table, making a decision. And we've seen countless cases where 12 people said, yep, they're guilty, and then DNA evidence proved them wrong. So we know we're fallible. We can't eliminate that from the equation. We just have, that's just what comes with it. As everyday people, I'd like to say it's as easy as just make good decisions and live a good life, but then again, you got to define good. Everyone's definition of that's going to be a little different in society, but most of the things we do, we know if what we're doing is wrong. Don't do those things. The other element is I don't even know how many thousands of laws on the books. I used to jokingly say I could walk to any car in a parking lot and write it 3 tickets, because we have so many laws that it's impossible to not break a couple of them every day without any intent or knowledge. So when we talk about carrying that firearm and living in that gray space, when I say the law is written in black and white, what you got to remember is the defense and the prosecution are not arguing the law. The law is written there. They're both reading the same words. What they're arguing is the application of the law to you. One's arguing it from this side, the other one's arguing it from that side. At the end of the day, whichever one's more convincing, doesn't matter if they're right or wrong, whichever one's more convincing are who those 12 people are going to go, Because if those 12 people don't go, would I have done that? Or could I see myself doing that? If the answer's not yes, you're guilty in their minds. Doesn't matter what the jury instructions are or none of that. The other thing is we talk about, doing what's right and doing what's wrong. Kind of the other video I did is if something's illegal, that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. When we say wrong and right and wrong, we're talking generally in a moral context. So when you look at someone running a stop sign, and there's Mala prohibited law and trying to remember the other one. I think it's Mala NCR, I forget, but there's laws that are illegal because they are statutorily prohibited, and then there's laws that are illegal because they're wrong based on society as a whole. Murder, rape, child molestation, that's wrong. Most people are not going to argue that point. Running a stop sign, expired inspection sticker, no seatbelt. There's no element of wrongness or immorality in that. It's just simply we said it's wrong, so it's wrong. That is how it is in black and white. We make decisions based on what we feel are right, or as I like to say, righteous, because things can be right, meaning they're legal, but they're not right. And the example I use in my video is, when the cops go and shut down some kid's lemonade stand on the corner because they don't have the proper permitting, those cops are right. They're well within the rights of the law. They're ready to go. However, they aren't doing necessarily what most people would say is the right thing. Like come on, man, that's, my response would be, come on, man, that's not right. It's legal, but it's not right. It'd be the same thing as writing someone a ticket for going 2 miles over the speed limit. Like, really? Yeah, technically it's wrong, but that's not right. But that's the thing, and you got to remember that those lines of black and white are constantly moving. So you're trying to stay in between them, but they're constantly moving because society is constantly adjusting what it thinks is right and wrong. Just as it's to decide what it thinks is politically correct, or racist, or police brutality, or sexist. Those targets are constantly moving, and you're just trying to stay in between them because you're never going to be too far on the white side. You're never going to be too far good. No one's an angel. But you could very easily step over that line as that target's moving, boom, and now you're on the wrong side of the law.
And I'm sure, well, I guess we're just lucky our society never makes knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, never.
Never, ever. So something that I loved about the video too is, and you kind of hit on it here, is you can do everything right, and I'm going to spend on this more in a minute here, but you can do everything right, and trouble finds a way of finding you no matter what. And what was great in the video was, even though pulling that trigger is 0.0001%, it has to be done correctly 100% of the time. Can you kind of go into that a little bit of? Now, a lot of people will go, okay, yeah, you got to, put the bullet on target, right 100% of the time. Yes, but you're not necessarily hitting on that aspect of it there, right?
No, and what I mean is it's a probability versus consequence. There are things that are very low probability, but very high consequence. So we prepare for them more so. Example, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money shooting at paper targets and doing all these other training things to get that thing that's so unlikely to happen. But the cost of doing it wrong, it's think of it like a parachute. When you do your last check, it's important because if you mess that up, there's no coming back from it. So that's kind of that. A lot of people say, oh, well, you're probably never going to need it anyway. And a lot of people use that to justify things, and I never understood this logic. But some people don't think, like, say, a .380 is a good defensive caliber. So someone will say, oh, well, I mean, it's not like I'm going to need it anyway. Then why are you carrying anything? Like, it doesn't have to be extremes. That's the 42?
Glock 42 just came back from ATI, but that's another story.
Thanks for throwing that off. Thanks for bragging.
Yep. Actually, I had somebody out in chat, Jarhead6, wanted me to show it. So.
Does agency arms not work on 42s?
I don't know.
I'll get an
I don't have a 42 yet. They actually do, though. They've already get that tournament.
You get that first sponsorship check.
Were you? I didn't want to interrupt you there, but are you wrapped up on that? What part? Or?
Yep.
Okay. I know, but I think that's a good analogy of the parachute part, because when you pull it, it needs to work.
Yep.
That's enough said. So let's kind of rehash here. I kind of want to go back to recap on that. So that 49% before, we're talking about decision making, talking about situational awareness, obviously getting that training, and then most importantly, that mindset aspect, preparation, doing the right things for the right reasons, and something what you hit on too, and we've mentioned this before, but I would kind of like to get your breakdown of it. Of we carry a gun to save a life, not take a life. And I think that's something, especially you can say anti-freedom, anti-gunners don't seem to get or understand. We don't carry a gun. Look, we don't want to kill somebody. I don't ever want to kill somebody. I don't ever really want to shoot anybody either. Most of the time, but we carry a gun to save a life, not take a life. So if we use it, we're doing it to save ourselves, not to kill the guy, right? Because I mean, on the internet you hear it all the time. Well, somebody kicks in my door, I'm going to put 3 rounds in him, and he's going to lay there and bleed to death. And there's a little. It's a little bit more complex than that. And it's again, we didn't shoot the guy to kill him. We shoot to save our own lives, right?
Yeah, and it's a perspective thing, and it's part of that is how I try to begin to develop new people's mindset. Is that's part of mindset is developing your own morality about it. And have I seen people that I'm kind of like, yeah, this guy's just wanting to shoot somebody? Like you kind of get that vibe from them. I've seen them here and there, but most people aren't. The overwhelming, and I mean, those people are quickly identified, and I'm talking a handful, but people just want to be safe. And in fact, it's unfortunate that we have to take on this burden of carrying a firearm to defend ourselves. We shouldn't have to do that. You know, there's certain things you can't control, like hurricanes and tornadoes and lightning strikes. So yeah, you need a fire extinguisher, you need a generator, you need those things. It's Mother Nature. You have no control over. But as human beings, we should be able to live in enough harmony that we don't have to shoot people. But that's not the reality. Doesn't matter how much I wish it. Doesn't matter what it should be. That's not the reality. And that's probably a good chunk, a good half of mindset is getting people out of the I wish it was this way world and into the oh, it's this way world. They just everyone yeah, but it shouldn't. I don't care. No one cares. It doesn't matter. I shouldn't be 5'6"3/4, but I you know, it just doesn't matter what I think. It is what it is.
Now, could we maybe say that, we'll say of the people that are in the Is What It Is camp are about 47%, give or take?
About. But they, you know, and that's the thing is there's a safety in saying, or a lot of people say, you know, well, my own wife, you know, I've been with my wife for about 8 years now. She is on the opposite end of the tactical spectrum that I am, you know, and like if I'm a 99 tactical, she's a 1 tactical. So now she can shoot, she has her permit, but she will never conceal carry. That is just simply not, and that's okay. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's obviously something I accept as, you know, being in a relationship with her. But she used to say, fortunately, she's gotten out of this mindset because she's kind of watches, being around me and the things I do, she views like the news and things like that from a different perspective. She used to just look at it like everyone else and go, and it was done. Now she's able to see a couple of degrees behind it. But she used to always say, you know, when I talk about this, well, I just don't want to live in a world like that. Well, unless you're going to kill yourself, you do live in a world like that. So you either accept that you live in that world. It's like saying I'm here in South Louisiana. Well, I don't want to live in a world that has hurricanes. Well, you better move because that's where you are. And a lot of people just won't accept that reality, and that's probably the biggest hurdle that they have in establishing their mindset is making themselves believe that they might have to shoot someone, and that act may result in that person's death.
So we covered the first 49% there. So let's go to that 0.001. We kind of hit on, you know, sometimes no matter what, trouble will find you. Has to be done correctly, 100% of the time. And then you hit on this part of, you know, someone kicks in your door at 2 a.m., well, they're choosing to get shot. I mean, or, you know, whatever type of force is used. So let's move on to the 51% here, kind of the after. Because this is what I loved about the video is, you know, and people focus on this, and again, we've talked about this on the show, is we haven't really ever talked about what happens after. There's so much emphasis on the before. You know, the 49.001% of the before. The after part, the emotional battle like you talked about, the legal battle, the coming to terms. On the emotional aspect too, and this is something that, again, I've never shot anybody. So until that point happens, I don't have any personal experience in that. You know, but something that I always come across is that, and I'm kind of jumping off a little off topic here, but you know, if you shoot somebody, and again, you talk about it in the first or second video, with a handgun, especially in the United States, chances are they're probably not going to die. Several shots, they can probably not going to die. In fact, you can people that have been on the show, people that listen to the show know my brother Greg is EMT near San Antonio. He's taking care of multiple gunshot wounds. He has yet to take care of somebody who died from a gunshot wound. That's just the way it is. Now, granted, most of the people shot themselves, but that's another story. You know, with, of course, you know, 25 ACP and 380. But that's a whole other story as well. But that of killing terms with, if you're involved in a shooting, there could be more to it than just shooting the guy and he dies. It's not like the movies where one bullet and the guy dies. You kind of have to prepare for maybe, you know, and you can have laws too to where you have to, you know, aid in or do some sort of medical stuff, right? I mean, there's a lot more to it than just, okay, well, I take care of the problem.
When his body hits the ground, it's not like your problems are over. In fact, your problems are probably, to the largest degree, just beginning. And there's the key to make, too, is once you pull that trigger, there's no going back and fixing or redoing anything that happened before. So once that 51%, the legal component of that 51% kicks in, that's it. Pencils down, test is over, you're going to be judged on everything before that as it lies. The emotional part too is there's a lot of other things. Like, again, using George Zimmerman's example, a lot of people are familiar with it. He can never have a job. He's been through at least 3 relationships that I just casually observed through Facebook. That's gonna that takes a toll on people. There are people who have been involved in situations where they defended themselves but could not deal with everything that happened and then killed themselves because of losing their job, getting a divorce, their kids not liking them anymore because now everyone makes fun of them. Like, there's so many different areas that it can just all go bad. A simple example of just the stress of having that legal burden on your head. We had a case here probably 2 or 3 years ago now. Young couple, for all week someone had been kind of up and down the street stealing stuff out of different people's yard. Guy's got a newborn baby, wife's pregnant, he hears a noise outside, he steps out on his front steps, there's someone in his yard, he's got a wrought iron fence, someone's in his yard, he tells him something to the effect of stop or get out my yard, the person turns to him and apparently starts coming at him, he shoots him in the face, guy goes down, come to find out it's a 14-year-old, the kid lives, so kid's still alive. So he was tried or he was judged under a different set of standards than if the kid had lived. Even though he shot him, at the time, you actually had better legal standing if the person died. If the person lived, you were in a worse place, legally speaking. So it almost created an incentive to kill. Fortunately, because of that case, we made some changes to the law. But here in Louisiana, it went to grand jury. The grand jury was hung. And went to grand jury again. The grand jury was hung. Now, the DA can just keep putting that to a new grand jury until whenever. Till he gets the decision he wants. So this guy, there's no rest. Like, it's constantly hanging over his head. Now, if it had gone to grand jury and the grand jury had come back no true bill, meaning we're not going to indict, then that's it. Game over. He's done, and he's immune from civil prosecution. So you could be in a situation like that where, and what was very strange in my opinion was that shooting happened the same week that the George Zimmerman verdict came out. And it was a white shooter, young black male suspect. So I was like, oh man, here we go. And it didn't. I think it's just because there was so much stuff with Zimmerman, it kind of got clouded. But a lot of good stuff came from that, but it came at that guy's expense. That guy got fired. He had a city job. He was never arrested, but he got fired from a city job just cause. So now he doesn't have a job with a newborn baby and a pregnant wife. Like, all that stuff takes a toll on you, and then that toll will often start to have you make more bad decisions because of the stress. I mean, look at George Zimmerman. No one in this country needed a gun more than George Zimmerman after he was arrested. I mean, think about it. All the death threats. Imagine living like that. And his life will never be. Everyone knows what he looks like. Everyone knows who he is. He'll never have a job.
I mean, just imagine if you're not George Zimmerman, but your name is George Zimmerman. How many people? I mean, that's all he said.
I'd be upset about that. That I would be mad about. I'd be like, damn it, George!
But I mean, that would happen. I mean, how many people are named Aaron? It could happen to Aaron right there. Too.
A lot of them that come.
How many people are named Aaron? Okay, I don't think so.
Aaron!
Do you? We talked about that, and we have all of this in the public eye, all over Facebook, all over social media, about that we can actually see some of that, the emotional toll on people in that 51%. Do you think, realistically, that in the right circumstance and the right person, it could make them hesitate to a point that their life is actually further in danger than it needs to be because of cases that have blown out into the public eye just because of the media coverage?
Absolutely.
And people make poor decisions based off of what they've seen other people go through.
It's hesitation. I mean, look at it. We saw a small spike in officers killed right after Ferguson. Why? Because it is human nature that after a police officer, after seeing what happened with Ferguson, if was faced with a black suspect and he's a white officer, believe me, there's some hesitation. Even if it's for but a split second. Some of the people with a stronger mindset, that hesitation gap is going to be a lot smaller. And what I tell people, and excuse my language, but I don't care who you are, how badass you think you are, when something like that happens, we all have a what the fuck moment. And that's that moment where our brain is processing and going, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Is that dude, holy shit, he's pointing. And that's your brain catching up. And as you do more scenario training, you watch more YouTube videos, you talk with friends, all that starts to acclimate you. You can never eliminate that what the fuck moment, but you can compress that time till it's as short as possible. And that's critical. We're all going to get surprised. None of us has spidey senses or ninja skills. So you're going to get caught off guard. That's human nature. No one's turned on all the time. But that's why you have to have that mindset at that level before. Like, am I saying that if someone came into my business right now, which is closed, and I'm looking, I see two dudes round the corner with AKs, that I'm going to jump up and do everything right? No, I can almost guarantee that I'm going to make some level of mistakes, but I've just thought about that. Like just right now when I said it, I thought about it. So even now, when I look over my security cameras, that's something that's in the back of my mind. That file folder has already been made and is sitting in my little mental Rolodex. There may not be any files in it yet, but at least the folder's there. It's something that's been considered. I'm not going to be sitting there going, oh shit, I need a file folder for this. And that's kind of how a lot of people's brain works in a linear thought process.
Just for the record, if that happens on the show, just turn your camera before you shoot, because that's a couple million views, man, and I want that on video. I'm just saying.
And we hope you make it out alive.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
turn the camera first.
Well, trust me, this won't be the good shot. I've got, I don't know, probably 15 cameras in this building. They're all HD. It'll be a good.
Oh, okay. Well,
and that's, actually, I'm glad you said it, because I know this is maybe not necessarily what we're talking about, but another thing people have to consider is you have to live your life, and this is kind of part of my mindset on decision making is I live my life like everything I say and do is being recorded, because number one, it probably is. When you factor in security cameras, traffic cameras, ATM cameras, cell phones, you're probably on video a good 70 to 80% of your day without even knowing it. Then I'm even as a police officer, a lot of guys with the body cams and all that, they get I want camera. I've been wearing a camera since the day I've had them in my car, where it literally took a cassette tape like that. All right, so I'm all about that. I've always carried voice recorders, because if I'm gonna make a mistake, I own my mistakes. So if I make a mistake, I want as much information as I can to learn from that mistake, because I don't want to make it again. When I don't make a mistake, I want to be able to prove I didn't make a mistake. So when I go places, one of the things I talk about is like, going out to eat. We've probably all heard, don't sit with your back to the door, pick an alternate exit, all those tactical things. One of the first things I do when I walk in a building is look up and see where the security cameras are. And then based on where I sit, I figure out, okay, if something popped off and a guy came in the main door, I know the general camera angle, because I know a good bit about cameras. I know the general camera angle. So if I have to make a move to take a shot or do something or interact in any way, I'm conscious of where the cameras are, because I want it on camera. Because if I'm choosing to do something, then I believe I'm doing it from a righteous decision, and I want that documented for proof. So we got to keep that element of cameras in there. Another thing is, everybody has a cell phone camera, and it's amazing how quick people can get them turned on. I just don't even understand how to do that. Now, if we could just teach them all to hold it like this before they hit the record button, we'd be doing all right. God, I hate that. Something good on video, and it's
World Star Hip Hop.
That's it. When you hear that video, you know it's about to get good. World Star Hip Hop.
Oh man, depending on never mind. I was just worried. I was thinking for a second. He's like, he wants to know where the cameras are so he can make sure he looks good while doing it. That's
always look good. That's not a concern.
But something that is a good segue to kind of wrap it up here too is what is important is in the 51% is often how you handle the 49%. And I think that is something that's really critical too. Is it's not just okay going off your checkbook example. It's not okay 49% check, 1% check, 51% check. It's not like that, right?
No, because they're tied to each other. Like I said, once that round goes off, most of that 51% you have no control over anymore. Like it's going to be how you did the 49% that affects the 51%. When they look at it and say, oh, you had 2 drinks. oh, well, that was a 49% decision, but it's affecting you now, and it may have no actual bearing on that less than 1%, but it's heavily affecting you, or it's going to be an obstacle in that 51%. And that's where all the decisions, all the stuff comes up, like, well, what if I change the grips on my gun, or I'm using hollow point ammunition, or all that type of stuff. Those are all decisions made in the 49 that may or may not affect the 51. But once the one's in, it's done. Like, your decision has been made.
Nope, I think that's a good point there. Aaron, you got anything you want to throw in on this?
I think we've actually covered it quite well. I mean, you said everything that I wanted to hear. No, I mean, we could talk 2 or 3 hours, about it, but we'd be going off different directions into the facets of proper mindset and all that mindset stuff.
Well, here's one thing that I do want to hit, Brannon, just from your experiences, and we get this question a lot, especially emails or YouTube comments, and we've hit on it some, but not. Obviously, you kind of experienced police officer stuff. Let's say that this proverbial 100% happened, and you do the shot. Again, and not that by any means we're not giving legal advice. We can't be held liable for anything we say. That needs to be I need to actually add that to a disclaimer on the video. In a self-defense shooting, can you give some ideas of what's going? We've talked about before, like, here's what you should do, but of what's actually going to happen to you when it happens. Because you hear, so okay, they're going to take your gun away, you're going to be taken to jail no matter what. Can you give any kind of input on that of what happens?
Yeah, I would say everything you've heard is a possibility, from the most craziest to the most mundane. I mean, I've been on scenes and know cases where people have been involved in self-defense shooting, and you swore they had called in a barking dog complaint, like it was just not a big deal. And there's times where things are full SWAT team, helicopters and all that stuff. It really depends, one, on the circumstances and the location and all those variables. But generally speaking, what I've seen, you can expect, if you actually shot someone, and that's another thing. Did you shoot them? Did you shoot them and they're alive? Are they dead? Have you moved locations? Are you holding someone at gunpoint? Did you shoot them and they ran off and you don't know where they're at? All those things kind of play a role in the dynamics of it. I think what's kind of the most important things that you can control is, as soon as it's safe to do so, call 911. 911 is typically not going to ask you any questions that will get you in trouble, down the road. That's just not the scope of what they're asking. As soon as it's safe to do so, holster the firearm, or even preferably have it somewhere safe you can set down, because the police are going to separate you from the firearm. So if you can do that beforehand, that severely lessens your chances of getting tased. That's one less variable that has to be dealt with. Because you got to remember, when that call goes out, it goes out either as a man with a gun call or a shots fired call. Not a Brannon LeBouef, superstar, practically tactical, really great guy, just had to shoot a bad guy. Like, it doesn't go out that way. You're just a dude that shot another dude, and nobody knows who's who. So until the cops get there and sort it all out, it's like a hostage situation. Everybody gets handcuffed. Because how easy would it be for a hostage taker to just kind of mosey on out with the hostages? So everybody gets handcuffed, everything gets figured out, and then the apologies get made and everybody does what they have to do. When the cops get there, you can expect there's a chance you're going to be, what I say, treated like a criminal. Guns pointed at you, yelled at, get on the ground, handcuffed, the whole 9 yards. If it happens at your house at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're standing in your living room wearing your Scooby-Doo boxers and pink flip-flops and there's a dead bad guy on your living room floor, well, probably not, because it's kind of clear what happened there. But if it happens at the ATM at the local mall and you're just some dude and he's just some dude, well, there's a lot more variables there that have to be figured out. One of the big things that comes up, too, is, what should you tell the cops? Should you talk to the cops? That comes down to what you feel about police. If you're someone who thinks that the cops are just out to get you, then, yeah, you probably shouldn't say anything to the cops. I don't think that's the case, especially if you're an obvious good guy and this is an obvious bad guy. The cops are behind you, like, high-fiving each other and shit, like, yeah, that's one more we don't have to deal with. I mean, honestly. So those cops aren't out to get you. Their job is to collect information. That's it. So that's what they're going to try to do. They're not collecting it with the intent to use it against you. What I generally tell people is, who says I'm not saying anything about my attorney? Guilty people. That's the perception. So while we know you have a Fifth Amendment right and all that type of stuff, and that's true, and I'm not minimizing that, the reality is your goal at that moment is to sleep in your bed that night. So you need to make decisions that get you closer to that goal. And acting like what cops expect a douchebag to act like are not going to get you closer to that. You can repeat everything you told 911 because that's already recorded. And what I generally tell people is say, look, man, I'll answer any questions you need me to answer. I'll do it. I'll draw pictures, man. But they taught me in my class to just make sure I have my attorney here. And the cop's probably not going to be very heavy-handed. He might be, well, no, man, it's cool. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I got to tell the lieutenant something so he can, we can let you go, man. I'm trying to get you home. No, man, I know and I appreciate it. I'm not saying you kiss their ass, but be real. Like, you're trying to develop a rapport. Because those are going to be the first decision makers on whether or not you sleep in your bed that night or you're eating bologna sandwiches with a bunch of stinky dudes. Like, they're the ones that make that decision. The hard part is a lot of people don't know how to control that throttle between developing a rapport and getting diarrhea of the mouth. And because we want to tell, especially when you're innocent. You want to tell, like, no. You want to get that story out, and you just got to stop, But like I said, expect the worst, but hope for the best. The biggest thing, if I had to say one statement about what to do afterwards, follow directions. Just do what you're told to do, and that's going to help stop things from escalating. They may start off pretty bad, but all you can control in that environment is how far they go. You can't necessarily calm them down, but you could very easily because again, it's everybody's got guns out at that point, so there's more of them than there are you.
Because one rule I heard, so for example, is you carry like your Glock 17, you also carry a high point, and then when they come, you say that you use the high point so they don't take your Glock. I don't, is that? I mean, I'm just thinking about that 49% plan. That's that's what I'm thinking about.
No, I mean there's. And the equipment thing, man, we can do a whole show just on that. But yeah, and that's a lot of people see something and want to tell a little lie to try to just tell the truth. It's like I tell people when you apply for a permit or apply for a job, smoked a little weed in high school, got caught shoplifting when you were a kid. People expect that. That's fine. You start lying about it, that's a whole nother problem. If you maybe shot the guy and he crawled out into your yard, dragging him back into the house is not a good idea. Right? I mean, granted, most cops don't have CSI like you see on TV, but it's pretty easy to figure out what happened there, right? I don't even have to put my donut down to figure that one out.
Well, they're going to wrap it up here. So, Aaron, you got anything you want to throw in there or add in? I appreciate you coming on and helping me out because, man, I feel terrible today.
Yeah, Aaron, thanks for all the help.
Hey, I appreciate you guys letting me hang out for a while and ask some questions and talk a little bit. If I had anything to add, we'd be here for another hour because I'd just be picking Brennan's brain. No, I hope I made you look good tonight. I was really trying over here.
I do need to get you a T-shirt though, man. I can't.
I can get you one of those.
Maybe know somebody.
I might know somebody who can get you in the door.
But before we wrap it up, so Brandon, what's going on with you? What's new? What training classes you got coming up? And I did just see you trained with T-Mac, who I want on the show so bad, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. To quote, no, you know what? I can't quote him about T-Mac because if T-Mac heard it, I know he could kill me. So, but how was training with him, and then what do you got coming up, man?
It was great, man. It was great. I've been very fortunate that I've had the opportunity to train with a lot of guys, and with very rare exception, they've all been really, really good. He's very, in fact, I'll be doing probably a recall article, kind of an AAR on that class as well. But it's if I had to pick one word to describe him, it would be engaging. He has a very, very vibrant personality, very knowledgeable, and to be quite honest, and I know this is kind of like a backhanded compliment, but he's a lot more intellectual than you would think. Like the way he presents his material, it's kind of like, all right, well, I wasn't expecting that. but it's engaging and it was good. I like the pace. You know, a lot of instructors tend to either just wear you out or you're kind of like, oh my God, can we do something? It was a good pace and a good flow. We'll definitely have him back at least once next year. We've also got Ken Hackathorn is going to be doing a class down here. We also have Jeff Gonzalez doing a class down here. And I'm working with both Larry Vickers and probably Jeff Gonzalez to do an open enrollment, probably 4 or 5 day instructor course. So they'll probably only be offered once through us. I'm working with Alias on that. And then me, I have a class going in Victoria, Texas. That's a new class this year. It's actually kind of a culmination of a couple of different classes. I call it a CCW immersion course. It's really kind of like all those physical skills you need to do and know and environments for concealed carry. So a little bit of vehicle stuff, a little bit of unorthodox position stuff, a little bit of low light stuff if the ranges will support it, a little bit of dealing with law enforcement. We do a trauma medicine block because I'm really trying to include that in every class I teach because I really believe it's that important. And then most of them will probably have a simunitions force-on-force block as well, a little bit of scenario stuff. And each one will change because, you know, of course, I'll be learning at each one as well. And then the dynamics of the students involved and their backgrounds always make each class different. And then I've got some other hosts I'm kind of working with that I might be doing some stuff with. And then mainly I'm here at the range. I got an indoor shooting range, St. Bernard Indoor Shooting Center. That's we're getting it's been open. We'll be open for a year next month. So it's to the point where it's kind of on its own. I got a good crew in place, so I can kind of start going back out and teaching more classes. I've got some trauma medicine classes and some defensive handgun and carbine classes going on here this year, but all that stuff's on our Facebook page in the events section.
Okay. And for all those guys listening, check the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, down in the description box below, there's links for that. Hey, Ron, so I know you just wrapped up the MDFI class you had out there. If you had to describe the smell of those guys in one word, what would it be?
By day 2, barbecue and dill chips. That was probably what it was.
When you started saying dill chips, I really thought that was going to go in a different direction. And I was both impressed and troubled.
Yes. They loved the barbecue down there, huh?
They did. Our bless her heart, our waitress got tipped really well, but man, they ran her ragged.
You earned it, huh?
Oh, she earned every penny she got from us. She was so flustered that one of our guys at the table didn't even get a bill. I don't know what happened to his, but it was like, I don't know what happened to your check. And he was like, all right. well, here's your tip.
Man, those Midwest guys, huh? We're just atrocious.
I think they drink all the sweet tea, all of it. Not just the table. They like brought pitchers out and they were like emptying them. I was like, where is this going? And they were going back to take a rest and drive all the way back to Michigan. I was like, good Lord. So yeah, great having those guys down. It was awesome.
But what else you got coming up, man?
We got a rifle class. Level 1 rifle class on the 14th. We've got Handgun 1 April 11th. We've got a range day that we're actually doing on April 18th that we just kind of offhand decided to do. There's some local LEO guys that are doing the Bike to DC challenge of riding 500 miles from Charlotte, North Carolina to DC for National Police Week in honor of some fallen officers around here. And we've got a bunch of companies already involved with that to donate products and services for some of the raffles that we're going to do and some of the steel challenges. We got DP Customs involved, Weapon Works LLC, Scalawag Tactical Minuteman Munitions, Dr. Code LLC, and M3 Tactical Kydex, and there's some other ones that I cannot remember at this moment, and I know I'll get yelled at later for. But we've got that on our Facebook. Then we've got Nick Smith and Aaron Cowan coming into town May 23rd and 24th. We're still trying to fill a class with Glenn from Media Action Concepts the week before that he and I will be teaching together. So we've got a full schedule so far just leading up into early summer. I just like being on the range, so I put stuff on the schedule and go out there and shoot stuff. Have people come out there and shoot stuff with me.
Hopefully somebody will show up, right?
Yeah, and if not, I'm still shooting. I don't care.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here, guys, but please check out the Gun and Giver podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network as well. And also, please be sure to check out all the shows on the Firearms Radio Network as well by visiting firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. Also, for your podcast listeners, be sure to check out the YouTube channel. I've dropped a video on shooting the Leupold Mark IV hammer. We got AXTS Talon Ambi Safety install and using it in action, and we did a video at American Defense Manufacturing on the UIC Mod 2 features. So, Brannon and Aaron, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. I thought we had an awesome conversation tonight. I thought we covered some really, really good information.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me be a part of it, Brannon.
I mean, I say that every show, but I really mean it. I just
yeah, exceptional.
And also, guys, so please don't forget about the EDC April. Email me, nick@firearmsradio.tv, as well as give me your feedback, guest suggestions, compliments, all that type of stuff at nick@firearmsradio.tv. Also, please give us a review on iTunes. That really helps us out. So, as always, guys and gals, we thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening to us, as we greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Practically Tactical.